let me write... Oh, you want a character sprite? Sure, here's one I made in like 10 minutes. Now let me write you a recipe called,
Carte Transcendence.
Sure. You'll need only 2 ingredients, with an optional 3rd ingredient for some extra flavor. You must possess a darkener, enough determination to coagulate into a new soul, and optionally a vial of hopes and dreams. If you choose to include it, mix the vial of hopes and dreams with the determination until it turns a vibrant red. Then inject the darkener using a syringe with the mixture or determination, making sure they absorb it all. Finally, place it into an incubator and wait for exactly 1225 minutes or until the determination has coagulated into a new soul. You will know it's done when the darkener is capable of entering the light world. But why does this rather bourgeois recipe here animate such an object without the presence of a fountain? My, what an exquisite question, Birdley. Watch the damn video.
Hello, my name is Ralsei. I'm driving a Mercedes-Benz.
Ralsei, our favorite fluffy goat self-negligent doormat. Through his own words, he says he can't enter the light world because he's a darker, specifically a pile of fluff. I'll get into why later, though. Anyway, at the beginning of Chapter 3, just before we meet Tenna, Susie reminisces about the festival coming in a couple days, and would like Ralsei to join. However, through his own words, he says, "It's just, I'm a darkener. Can't enter the light world." In other words, nothing more than an object animated by the determination provided by a fountain. However, against Ralsei's own self-judgment, there's plenty of evidence that he's both wrong and a bit more than the average darker. For one, while this theory doesn't explain why, Ralsei can easily travel between dark worlds at will. For two, in his overworld sprite, his horsed highlights on his fur are light red. This could suggest how his darkener form is stained with the determination, blood as implied in Deltarune, of a lightner. We know he's a pile of fluff due to the dialogue that plays when he swooned in the night battle. Furthermore, our soul's light will metaphorically, and sometimes literally, weaken other darkeners, yet strengthen Ralsei alongside his powers. If he contains the blood of a lightner, it could explain how he's able to harness our soul's light. But why would the blood of such a phantasmic being strengthen a darkener in such a way? I'm getting to that, Birdley. Be patient. On the weird route, specifically when we re-equip the Thorn Ring to Noelle in Chapter 4, we get an interesting animation. Blood-colored glass shattering with the silhouette of a soul hidden within. Furthermore, at the end of the same chapter, Susie shatters the final prophecy, laughing it off, wipes her bloody hand onto Ralsei, who absorbs it into his fur. If we connect these two pieces of evidence, treating blood like determination, it could suggest the possibility that the determination of a soul, in this case Susie's soul, could coagulate into another soul, inheriting the traits of Susie. Now let's move on to Spamton. Excuse me, kind sir, but I'm experienced a dose of Kukiyomi. Shut up, Birdley. Spamton constantly wishes to go to heaven, to the point of asking us to transfer him into another body. Sham says in Chapter 1 that darkeners view us lightners as gods. We can infer that if we're gods to darkeners, then the light world must be heaven, which does imply something when the prophecy tells us to banish the angels' heaven, but that's not relevant to this theory. Still, we install the loaded disc onto the body. Spamton Neo shows up, realizes he's still in a dark world, and then says how we still need one last thing, our soul, of which is a continuous source of determination. Keep note of that. You may be wondering, Spamton's a crazy freak. Why on earth would this be relevant? First of all, Spamton does seem to have a knack for finding hidden details and information, as Noelle uses him to find her sister. Furthermore, Spamton also references unused dialogue, of which is probably December, and says she was talking to you. If anyone would know how to enter the light world, it would be Spamton. This is further backed up by the lyrics hidden in his boss music. It pulls the strings and makes him ring. Now, after we beat him on the pacifist route, he mentions how we're helping him and cuts the last wire all by himself. Furthermore, the background changes to clouds in the sky, and the song I'm a Real Boy from the soundtrack starts playing, referencing Pinocchio, where a puppet brought to life turns into a real boy. And what happens next? Spamton Neo goes dark, and Spamton reverts back into his darkener form. And finally, Ralsei brushes it all off like that entire fight meant nothing. Kris is clearly distressed by it, so there's some clear ties to that too. There's one last detail I would like to mention. After defeating Spamton Neo, we can go talk to Sham, who mentions how the Neo body was drawn by a lightner, infusing it with hope in the process. I originally had this as a one-off point, but the more I thought about this, the more Flowey's existence in Undertale connected to this theory. Flowey came into existence in Undertale through an experiment in the True Lab to inject an inanimate object with determination. Furthermore, Flowey was patterned with the dust of Azrael after he collapsed at the entrance of the ruins. This resulted, like we see with Durston and Deltarune, in Flowey being patterned with the memories of Azrael. Because Ralsei is a darkener, his memories are stored within the object itself Ralsei takes form from. Thus, dust is not needed unless we would want to revive a lightner. Hey, wait a minute. The reason darkness exists is due to the determination sourced from the fountain. Thus, if you were to provide a darkener with a continuous source of determination, like say from a soul, they could persist in the light world. There's also some evidence in the Spamton Neo fight that hope can allow you to hold on to said determination longer, allowing any darkener to temporarily enter the light world. All that is why Ralsei brushed off the meaning behind the fight. Spamton's desire went completely against his own beliefs that he is incapable of going to the light world because he's a shadow, an illusion. But wait, that's not all. Ladies, MBs, and gentlemen, this is where things turn a little crackpot.
Maybe a new old man, Ammo!
During Cursed's secret boss fight, he mentions how Susie has the white pen known as Hope and has the power to rewrite the prophecy. If Ralsei were to get a soul made up of Susie's blood or determination, he would theoretically inherit Susie's power. If this were to happen, what's stopping him from rewriting himself as a lightner? Well, we would see him be physically more hungry, and considering that Dark World food provides no nutrients to lightners, this may prompt Kris and Susie into getting the cake they baked for him, which could satisfy his hunger. Throughout the game, however, the only Darkener to experience genuine change, as Susie noted, is Ralsei. And while other Darkeners have gone through character development, it's still within the confine of the Fountain's will, which makes Ralsei closer to the Lightners in this regard. Combining this with his ability to harness the Soul's light, we can infer that Ralsei may be transitioning into becoming a Lightner. This is also hinted at when someone mentioned plastic surgery to Ralsei as a one-off joke in Chapter 4.
Driving in my car right after a beer, hey that.
In conclusion, there's some strong evidence that Ralsei, being possessed by a soul, will enter the light world with the power of determination. Some minor evidence that he may become capable of rewriting the prophecy in favor of him becoming a lightner, alongside the possibility of using an object as a vessel to permanently revive someone deceased, like Urson, or probably Jess, assuming she's dead in the light world. That concludes my Deltarune Transcendence theory. This was my first genuine video essay series, so if you enjoyed watching this video, it would help a lot if you could get the algorithm to recognize my video by liking, commenting, or if you particularly enjoyed this, subscribing. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.